Okay, we are off. Welcome to the podcast, Amanda and Rebecca. I appreciate you both being here.
Thank you for having
Hello.
us.
I I haven't done this in a long time, which is have guests on my podcast. And for me, I think it was just a natural phase that I felt compelled to go through where I was kind of refining my voice and what I wanted my message to be. And it actually really helped me in my business. But I'm so excited to, and I mean this sincerely, I'm so excited to be here with you both and better understand you individually and what you do collectively. But if you're open to it, as I reintroduce guests to my show, I was hoping I could um, use a kickoff that I use with all of my clients in all of my meetings with you both here right now, if that's okay.
Of course, your show, your rules.
Okay. So I start off every client meeting, and this is whether it's a one-on-one or if it's with an executive team, so numerous people, and we do something that I call appreciation integration. So we go around the room, and everyone that's in that space shares one thing that they're grateful for. So something you're appreciative of. Can be as simple as my car started today, or my family, or my health, whatever it may be. And then the integration is something that isn't in your life today that you would like to be, whether it is, I want to read 10 pages a day of a self-improvement book, or I want to get to the gym 5 days a week, or I want to spend more time with my partner, whatever it may be. So you're announcing to everyone in the room, I don't do this, but I would love to integrate it. So feel free, whoever, Amanda or Rebecca, what is your appreciation integration today?
You want to go?
Go for it, please.
One thing I'm grateful for, since you gave a very tangible in the moment example, was my first phone call this morning was a call and not a Zoom. So I actually pulled weeds in my garden while I was talking on the phone, which was so nice because I love to be in my garden and it's not hot yet, which is really nice to be outside and it's not hot. And sometimes it's nice to not have your eyeballs on a screen and just connect with someone, the old fashioned way with your voice. Something that I would like to integrate more in, and this is something that we're starting to do in the future. So it's maybe a little bit of a cheat, but I want to teach with groups more. I do great majority one-on-one work, which I love so much, but I love community energy. I love, I come in my earliest days of teaching or coaching anything were yoga. So that was almost always, I had 2 private clients, but it was almost always groups of 10 or more. And there's just something nice about that, that I'm yearning for. So yeah, calling more of that in.
Love it. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
Rebecca, how about yourself? Appreciation integration.
Yeah. So the number one thing on my mind right now, Amanda knows this, is that I'm 8 months pregnant and it's been smooth sailing. Everyone is healthy. And so that is the number one thing in my life that I am grateful for right now. It's kind of what more could I ask for in this moment than to be feeling good and still able to do the things that I love and that bring me joy and that hopefully help others a little bit throughout this pregnancy. And then what I want to integrate more into my life. So the work that we do, we both started out doing primarily one-on-one work, which I'm sure we'll get into later. And we've moved into more offerings that are intended to reach more people, right? Because one-on-one coaching is not affordable for everyone. It's not approachable for everyone, but the tools that we use in one-on-one coaching are intended for everyone, right? And so I want to be able to reach a broader audience with more accessible offerings, whether that is the course we just launched, all about burnout, more courses that we want to create in the future, our podcast, retreats, group programs, because I think that, the ability to work and build your life and build your career in a way that actually feels good is something that people need right now because there's so much suffering in the world. And when we think about, where's a tangible place that we can begin to address that suffering, that is it. And so that is my integration.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing, both of you. And I think it's a great segue into, again, diving into both for myself and for the listeners, what it is that you both do collectively with Full Plate, Full Cup. I mean, obviously, you mentioned the podcast, you mentioned the courses and programs, and obviously the one-on-one work, and obviously, and the vision of bringing it to a larger group. But from a high level, which actually I hate that language, but I'll use it anyway. From a high level, help me and the listeners understand, I guess, two questions if I can. What is it that you do? And then I would also love to understand, and you can do one before the other, is how did this come to be? Like, how did you two come to find each other and come to create this offering for the world?
I'll let Amanda kick off how this came to be, because it was your thing before I stepped into it, Amanda.
Yeah, so I'll give you the how it came to be, and Rebecca can kind of tell you like what it is now. So I had sort of a rock bottom, not sort of, I had a, by all intents and purposes, rock bottom burnout moment. A little over 10 years ago. I was an executive at a global hospitality company, Tao Group. Many people have heard of it or have gotten drunk at the venues. But I, at a routine checkup, my doctor said, Amanda, your heart rate is like totally erratic. Like you need to get this checked out. So I had a severe arrhythmia. My heart was skipping every third beat, and there wasn't really a medical cause for it. So the doctor was basically like, you're too stressed. You're like doing too much. You're pushing yourself too hard. You need to chill the fuck out. So can we cuss?
Go for it.
Okay, sweet. Awesome. That will allow me to be much more myself. So this, I'm 28 years old. Okay. My entire identity is being the hardest working person in the room, right? The hardest working, the hustler. People would literally say I was a machine because I could bang out like just I was really productive, like insanely productive, and did it with like a similar amount of ebullient energy that you see today. But a lot of it was like fight or flight mode, right? So I was like, oh my God, what do I do with my life? Like how do I continue to be me if I'm not able to work 14, 16-hour days? So I took a sabbatical year. And during that time, I was already teaching yoga on the side, which is kind of ironic. I was a vegan yoga teacher, stress addict. So just goes to show you. But during that year, I really committed to figuring out, okay, how does one like survive in this fast-paced world that we find ourselves in? We are all taught as kids, you give 110%, right? And then you do it and it doesn't work out so well for you, right? That's why everyone is chronically burnt out, right? It's such epidemic levels. So in that year, I studied MBSR, which is mindfulness-based stress reduction, yoga therapy, meditation. I became a health coach. I got Reiki attuned. I studied all of these modalities that allow us to come back to balance, to regulate our nervous system. So after the year, I came back into the workforce, and as a completely different person, right? As a person who had these really beautiful, non-negotiable boundaries that came from a place of like, hey, like you might die if you don't. So that, that's kind of the easy way out in some senses. I was forced to become very explicit with my boundaries. But at a few years in, the phrase full plate, full cup came to me as sort of like a life philosophy, right? I don't want to be, laying on the couch, doing nothing, like lazy girl life, right? I want to have a full plate. I want to have a career. I want to make a difference in this world, but I also want to keep my cup full. I don't want to sacrifice that to have some big booming career where I go home and chug a bottle of wine and cry every night, right? Which we know a lot of successful people are doing, right? So back in 2017, I started like a Finsta of full plate, full cup. That was literally just like me posting like little inspirational quotes and like memes and stuff like that. My face was never visible. It was never like, this is Amanda Baudier's like, Finsta account. It was very quiet because I was working full-time jobs. I didn't have the space or sort of the bravery to like put myself out there. And it wasn't until I decided to leave my full-time job in last year, just a little over a year ago, literally, that I was like, oh, like it's time for this idea, this concept, this philosophy to become my life's work in a real, tangible way. And that was, I'll let Rebecca kind of say how we met and then how like full plate, full cup became us.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
So Amanda and I met when we were both working full time in 2017. One of my past lives is that I ran partnerships at a company called Mind Body Green, which kind of was an OG wellness digital media company. So I was the 10th employee. I grew the partnerships team from 0 to 1. And we used to host this weekend retreat for big wellness influencers and speakers and companies called Revitalize. And Amanda at the time was working for Sakara, and she came as a guest of Sakara, and we were placed next to each other at dinner. And my job was to entertain Amanda, make sure that she had a good time, was getting what she wanted to get out of the weekend. And we just hit it off. Like when you meet someone and you see just a light in them that you are drawn to, that feeling was absolutely mutual. So this dinner that was just supposed to be kind of this business networking, entertain the client and then go to bed type thing turned into something much more. So by the time we were home from the weekend away, Amanda had slid into my LinkedIn DMs and basically said, you seem cool, we should keep in touch. And so we did keep in touch over the next several years. And what was interesting about how we kept in touch is that it was both in a friendship capacity and also in a business capacity. We really got to understand through our conversations, like, what are you interested in? What lights you up? What are you struggling with? What do you want to do in and contribute to the world? And so we actually, during those 5 years, talked about launching a few other businesses. I think we bought like 2 or 3 domain names together, ready to rock. And then, 3 years into our friendship, I moved to Portland, Oregon for my quote unquote dream job at Nike, working on the women's global brand team, which if you're familiar with marketing, Nike is like the gig to get. Unfortunately, the dream did not turn out to be all that was promised to me, as many of these corporate climbing the ladder things tend to be. And about 6 months into this job that I had literally spent 4 years interviewing for, no joke, I was just crying on my couch at night, realizing like, oh shit, I have made a terrible mistake. And when you work so hard for a dream and then realize that it is not all it was cracked up to be for you personally, not for anyone else, for you personally, that is like a shattering feeling that kind of leaves you with, well, now what? Without this thing that I thought was going to be my life, be my fulfillment, who am I? What do I do? And so we eventually moved right back to New York and just kind of slid back into this life that I had left behind. I took, a bit of a holdover job until I figured out what I wanted to do. And I left that job without a plan, with an intention that I wanted to help people figure out what they wanted to do in the world, but not a plan of how to do it. And so 6 months into me leaving my job, literally the day after Amanda left her job, we found ourselves at a charity event together. I don't think we'd seen each other since I'd moved back from Portland, Amanda. I think that was our first or second time meeting up.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. And we were, it was a charity event. Everyone was drinking. There was a DJ. And I think we were sipping like sparkling water and kind of said like, let's just go on this corner couch and like catch up over here. And in that catch up, it was this wild download moment of, we need to build this thing together, right? And I think what was key about that conversation is that we had pre-established a trust and a mutual appreciation of each other. But in that moment, we both chose to be so honest with each other and so vulnerable about what we wanted to create in the world, kind of to steal your word, integration, right? It was a conversation about integration and what we wanted. And what we found is that we really had similar visions, right? Not necessarily the same vision, but similar visions, similar enough that it became very clear that we had to make Amanda's Finsta into an actual business. And so we spent the next 3 months buckling down and figuring out how we were going to make it happen, really putting pen to paper, brainstorming ideas, putting together a website. We had a little brand photo shoot. Like we did all the things. And the intention from the very beginning with Full Plate, Full Cup was to help people be wildly successful and wildly happy, right? Because we are often taught that you either have one or the other, right? You're either like top of the ladder, you're running your own business, you're raking in piles of cash, you're going on sexy vacations, you're doing the things, or you're like living blissfully in the woods, meditating all day, wildly happy. And we know that you can have both. And we believe that you should have both. And so that is really the ethos upon which Full Plate, Full Cup was founded. So how do we do that? We do that through many different ways, right? And what that's looked like, by the way, has changed drastically since we've launched. Amanda, maybe you can touch on that next. But the way that we do that today is through group coaching, team workshops, corporate consulting, and then kind of the two prongs that we're most excited about and most leaning into are courses. So we just launched our very first course. It's called From Burnt Out to Lit Up, and it is all about helping people in a very pragmatic, step-by-step way recover from and prevent burnout. And then the final thing we offer is our podcast, right? And our podcast, we interview people who are at the top of their games, whether it's in a career or their own business or a creative pursuit. And we really demystify the idea of success, right? Like we're so over these shiny, sexy, 0 to 7-figure success stories that we see on the internet all the time. Like that's just not how life works. And so we really try to get down and dirty on what was the real journey here. We describe it as how I built this meets Super Soul Sundays. Amanda, do you want to dive into like how Full Plate, Full Cup has changed since we first launched? Because speaking of demystifying success, I think that's so important.
Yeah, the one thing that I first wanted to add, because I think there might be people listening who are like, I want to like quit my job and start my own thing, and oh, this sounds so amazing. And so what we said from the outset, what we discussed literally on that couch at that party, my last day of my full-time job was actually Friday. And look, I've got 2 kids, I got a mortgage, like I needed to make money, and we were so clear on the impact that we wanted Full Plate, Full Cup to have, that we weren't ready to say like, hey, here's how we're going to scale this thing to make like a livable wage for 2 grown human beings immediately, right? So I've been a certified executive coach since 2019. So I knew, hey, like starting to actually, like I took 2 weeks in between, but June 24th was my last day. July 8th, I saw my first executive coaching client. And I was always very clear that like I was going to be doing my one-on-one coaching. That was how I was going to make my money and pay my bills. And our Full Plate, Full Cup business, we were going to build it from a space of like real integrity and not like we need to monetize this out of the gate. And I know that you might be thinking, well, I don't have the luxury of doing that. It's like, well, you need to figure out your version, right? So maybe it's for you, you stay at your full-time job and start building your thing, or you say, hey, full-time job, can I become a contractor and get paid for 30 hours a week because I'm building this thing? What, find your bridge, find the thing that's going to work for you. But what I knew for sure is that I didn't want to take this thing that came literally from my heart, right? This real vision of what life could be like for people, and then say, all right, day 1, Facebook ads, day 2, like funnels, right? Like if I just wanted to like do like, growth marketing, right? I would have worked for somebody else and made $300K a year as like a CMO or whatever. Like that was not what we wanted to do with Full Plate, Full Cup. So what that meant was we had some early wins, right? And we had also a lot of things that we put out into the world that were like, wah, 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 right? Like, we wanted to do this group coaching program for founders right out of the gate. And the only people that were interested in it were actually people that wanted to work with us one-on-one. And it was one of those things where like this, you know what, maybe we're not ready for this offering yet. Like maybe like we need to like cut our chops a little bit, focus on our one-on-one coaching to make money. And that was where we actually decided to launch the podcast. And the beautiful thing about the podcast, which because you have a podcast, unless you're famous and it's like massive, it doesn't make you money, but it allows people to see who you are and to understand that what you believe in, and that you are someone that they may actually want to spend money on, whether it's, you know, a corporate workshop that we offer, working with one of us one-on-one, investing in, you know, our course. And so it's been a real slow burn, but there's never been a point in our business where we ever compromised the vision to make money, like not even for a second. And that is, I think, extremely rare, particularly in the world of coaching. Sorry, coaches. I know there's a lot of good ones out there, but it's a lot of like, here's how you use psychology to sell. Here's how you say, like, I'm making $7 million in my third year, and let me show. And it's like, that is the opposite of what we're doing. And, you know, we are living and breathing what we teach, right? We both are hardworking. We both, you know, have big goals of what we want for our career and our lives. And we also are extremely committed to our joy and our happiness and our mindfulness practices or our fitness practices, right? We like, what you see is what you get. And if that means for us, like, we don't scale to be a 7-figure business for like 5 years instead of 3 years or whatever, you know, like if it extends sort of the runway of our financial success pattern, I'm fine with that. This is our life's mission. It's going to evolve. It's going to change, right? But the integrity piece is so crucial to both of us. And like, we set that expectation out of the gate. A quick aside, when I was on my sabbatical year, I actually started a business with a friend of mine that was in the yoga space. It was a digital community for people who were in the yoga world. And he came from the world of like digital marketing, app building, et cetera. And he came in like, we're going to do this. And if we want to scale, we're going to do this. And then we're going to do that. And we're going to get this investor. And I was like, whoa, 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 whoa. Like, I'm on sabbatical, bro. Like, this is not, and I literally just said, never mind. I don't want to do this. And I think with Rebecca and I, if either one of us had been like, you know, pushing that kind of boundary, butting heads, and it might not have worked out, but the way that we did it had so much integrity. And that's, I think, why, and I think it comes through. I hope it comes through in the way that we show up, because we are having a great time.
That was all awesome. My gosh, so many things to unpack. And what I take from what you just shared there, Amanda, and obviously a lot of what you shared as well, Rebecca, is like there is an authenticity to what you do. And I will say, from someone on the outside looking in, I do get that sense from how you show up. And obviously social media is a thing, and we can only understand it as much as you care to show us. But that's one of the reasons why I was intrigued to link up with you, is because I did feel this sense of authenticity. And as you're describing how this relationship came to be, and also how you navigate your work, for some reason, what popped into my head was this vision of kind of like an artist or a musician or a band, if you will, who's just on stage doing what they feel so authentically drawn to do. And there's no concern about, are we doing it right? Are we doing it wrong? Are people happy? Are they not happy? They're just fully doing themselves. And then the byproduct of that is the stands are full, they're screaming fans, and they're making an impact. So of all of what you shared, that's just what kind of came over me, was that authenticity is actually, I think, like the coolest and sexiest thing that we can be doing in business today, and the most attractive thing. And I see it when I look at things like musicians, like when they're actually in that state of fully doing what they feel so compelled to do, there is no outside influence. It's just them doing what they feel like they should be doing. And I get that sense from both of you. So I just want to honor that and highlight that. And I think it's like awesome. And if I can say, from a safe place, like super sexy as well.
Thank you. Thank you. It's funny because I really appreciate you saying that. Amanda and I talk about a lot, like, we know how to do all the things, right? We've spent a combined 35 years in executive leadership positions, launching businesses, scaling businesses, growing legacy businesses. Like, we know how to do funnels. We know how to run a viral social media account. we choose not to do those things for our own business because those are the things that burnt us out and took away the joy in the past. And so we're very strategic about what we choose to do and what we choose not to do, coming from a place of, yes, like, is this good for the business? But also, does this excite us, right? Because I think when you're doing things consistently that don't excite you, especially in the type of work that all three of us are in, people see right through that. And that is the last thing that we want to happen for our clients, for our consumers, and frankly, for us as well.
And
Yeah,
from
I love
a
that.
from a
Amanda, do you want to share? Oh,
pragmatic
sorry. Go ahead.
from a pragmatic standpoint, what Rebecca just shared, right, is very much, you know, we want to enjoy our lives and for our business to be part of our lives versus like for our business to sort of run our life. But from a pragmatic standpoint, right? Because that's kind of like we walk both sides of the street, right? Like I can give you the spiritual and the kind of soul forward reason for what I do, but also like I coach founders, right? I work with a lot of people who either have a solo business, a couple of employees, or massive businesses, right? There is a difference between top line and bottom line. And I can tell you, there are so many people who go into business and want to do it the way that they've seen it done on the internet, right? They want ads, they want the highest production value, they want like, you know, studio quality editing, and they need like a hair and makeup artist for their photo shoots, right? So maybe they made $100,000 that year, but they spent $72,000 on trying to look like they made six figures, right? And what I can tell you about like our individual coaching businesses and our own business is that like our margins or like, it's like, there's no margins. We do it all. We keep it very lean and keep it very scrappy. And we probably net in the same place where someone who is really grinding and who has like a production team and a virtual assistant and a hair and makeup art, like we do not need to build businesses that look impressive from the outside that aren't serving us. Like I do not, you know, I was talking to someone about this yesterday. Like I consciously kind of like don't do myself up before I record videos. And like, I've gotten really comfortable showing up like in my gardening clothes with a sweaty face and no makeup on, recording videos on the internet. And the reason for that is not because I never put myself together, but the message that I want to bring to the world is like, you can be successful and be yourself at the same time. We don't all have to become perfect. And here are my white teeth, and here's my Botox, and here's my, you know, like film crew. Like that is a way, and it's been copied over and over and over again, right? You could probably list, and not in a like a judgy way, but so many successful female personalities on the internet who all look picture perfect all the time. Great. Like, I want to show you, if that feels boring or like stressful or like not fun to you, like don't do that. Be yourself, and let that be what people want from you. Because at the end of the day, it's so much easier for me to advertise myself and then be myself than advertise this like cookie cutter woman. And then you get me and you're like, wait,
that would be shocking,
right? Like, I don't want to catfish. I don't want to catfish people. Like
Right.
Our marketing is not catfishing, right? Our marketing is like, what you see is what you get. If you like it, great. If you don't, awesome. There's someone else for you.
I love that. Something you mentioned, Rebecca, two words that you used, and it comes up in my work so much, is I push my clients to be uncomfortable, if I can just be really honest. Because I know through my own personal growth, from relationships that I've had to my own business to working for other people, I understand that it's in that discomfort where we actually do grow, and the name of my business is Seeking Growth. So I'm constantly seeking growth and pushing my clients. And something you mentioned was, you said honesty and vulnerability. And first off, I love those two words, and I think they should show up in our daily lives, personally and professionally. Was that a non-negotiable in those conversations that you had on that sofa sipping sparkling water? Did those words ever come up in that basically like our philosophy is this: we want to be honest, we want to be vulnerable, and you would encourage Amanda to show up sweaty in her garden, or was this very organic? It was just who you are or who you wanted to be, or was it an actual articulation when you were building this out saying we must and we will not compromise on the honesty and vulnerability because we feel like it's going to actually get us where we want to go. The byproduct will be the money and all that stuff will happen, but this must be at the basically the core of what we're doing is this honesty and vulnerability piece.
Yeah. First of all, I love your business name. It's fantastic. And it's a great descriptor of what you do. So kudos to you for that.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that question. I do think that honesty and vulnerability are at the core of what we do and have been from the get-go because of the integrity around which we wanted to build this business, right? Like, I remember when we had that initial conversation, I told Amanda, like, I don't know if I want to go into the coaching world. Like, I struggled, Amanda, I'm sure you remember this. I struggled for a good 6 months about even using the word coach to describe myself because what I saw out there gave me so much ick. And I was like, I don't even want to be associated with that because it does not feel in integrity. It does not feel like who I am, right? But we really got honest with ourselves about like, okay, well, how can we rewrite this so that it suits who we are, so that it promotes what we want to build, and so that it makes us feel good and proud of what we're putting out into the world. And so I think for anyone out there who wants to do something, but you're not quite sure like if you'll fit the mold of what you see already existing, I would encourage you to challenge that mold and think, okay, just because other people have done it this way doesn't mean that I need to do it this way. And if I were to kind of forget everything that I've seen out there, how would I do it in a way that felt in integrity with who I am and aligned with my values and in a way that's honest about what I want to put into the world?
Love it. Amanda, did you want to add to that?
Yeah, the mission of what we do, right, is to help people get lit up by their lives, right? Which is a combination of, hey, my career or my business is fulfilling me, whether it's money, impact, some combination of the two, but also I'm enthusiastic about life, right? I have my joie de vivre. And for me, and I think for many people, having to put on a mask, having to be someone you're not, be the representative of a brand, right? I worked at really cool brands my whole career and was sort of a behind the scenes person and a representative of a business or brand that I did not myself create or put into this world. And so what I know for sure is that when I'm trying to be someone I'm not, when I'm like, oh, like, who do they need me to be in this moment? That is like it's like throwing water on my light, right? It's like, dousing my joy. And so for us to really have the biggest impact that we can in the way that we want to have an impact, we have to be the living embodiment of that. And sometimes that means being our messy selves, right? I'm a little bit more like, Rebecca's just a little bit more naturally put together. That's truly who she is, but she will share things that come from a place of deep vulnerability, right? So like unmasking the soul, which I think is much more important. Sort of the like not putting on makeup is almost just like a way to stick it to the man. I'm a little bit of an anti-authority, anti-establishment.
Like I'm wearing a white button down. I own like 10 of these. Like it's just the uniform.
It's just her. It's her style, right? And that's beautiful. But she bears her soul and unmasks some of the insecurities, right? And what I will also say is when we first started, this was always our intention. But our first few like videos, things we put out there, the first time you go from like, oh, I can be myself in social situations or in a coaching to like, I can record a video of myself talking on the internet and be ourselves. No, like our first handful of videos were much more like, okay, does my hair look okay? Like, what am I wearing? Or do our outfits go together? Like, what do we say, right? We were nervous in that format and in that arena. And it took, a while of doing it. And I think for me, what started happening was, Rebecca can attest to this. I had a couple of videos where I was literally like hair in a ponytail, walking down the street with my phone like this, no makeup on, pushing a stroller and walking a dog, like the most like lazy girl video you could ever imagine. And they went viral. And I'm like, oh, Jesus, if I can go viral, literally just talking into my phone while pushing a stroller on the way to take my daughter to school, what's all this effort for? I don't need to worry about what I'm wearing. I don't need to worry about like, putting on the face. Like I can really just show up as myself. So I don't want people to think that we are just like so confident that we never ever had the like, ooh, like, do we look okay? Do we sound okay? Starting to put yourself out there on social media is I think a big hurdle for almost everyone. And so if you are in that place where you haven't put a message out yet, but you want to, give yourself grace that the first 20 videos maybe that you put out. Yeah, Rebecca's like, yeah, says more. But, the first little bit is you starting to get comfortable. It's like, when you go to a new school, right? You might have been the queen of fifth grade, but then you walk into middle school and you're like, oh, there's like big people here. Like I need to that's what it is every time you put yourself in a new arena. And social media is one of those arenas where if you want to have a business, especially if you're a service provider, it's kind of someplace you have to be. Otherwise, no one will ever find you or know who you are. And it does take a little while to feel comfortable being whatever version of yourself you want to put out there in that medium. And so like, give yourself some grace.
Absolutely. And I think you just touched on again, like what I really do push my clients to do is go through their version of that. Is like, it's going to probably be a little uncomfortable, and that's okay. That's how we actually know that we're trending in the right direction. We are actually growing. And I feel like and you didn't necessarily say it that way, but that was you all, whether you be conscious of it or unconscious of it, that was you growing into naturally how you wanted to show up as a business, but also show up as individuals on those platforms. So I commend you on having that patience and sticking to it. And it reminds me of a quote, and I don't know who said it, so I feel bad that I can't acknowledge them, but it's something along the lines of, if your first version is perfect, you've waited too long. And I tell myself that often in regards to, was it your quote, Rebecca? Did I just steal your
No,
quote?
but I believe so steadfastly in that. I've never heard the quote. I'm definitely going to borrow the quote. But yeah, that's something that I so believe in, and that I tell all my clients, that I tell any aspiring entrepreneurs that I talk to. You can obsess something for years. A, it will never be perfect. And B, if by some act of God, you get it to the point that you think it's perfect, I guarantee the minute you put it out into the world, you're going to want to change it, right? Like I've worked on some of the biggest, most visible brand campaigns in the world that literally years were spent putting them together. And I can tell you from like an insider POV that the minute they went out into the world, we changed things. We pulled them back, we changed copy, we changed videos, because that is literally the only way to figure out what works and what doesn't work, what lights you up and what doesn't light you up, is to do the damn thing. And so, whatever it is that you want to do, whether it is starting a business, interviewing for a new job, trying to show up on social media, just do something, right? Do something that feels like a little bit scary. Amanda and I call it microdosing risk. Do something that feels a little bit scary, not scary enough that it's going to like shut your nervous system down and make you crawl into a cave. It just feels like a little bit uncomfortable. And then just notice what happens without judgment, but from a place of like curious observation. And then take it from there, right? Like that is the only way to make things happen for yourself.
Yeah, it's like, for me, what comes to mind when you share that is like, no shame, no blame. It's just like, what did I learn from this? How did I grow?
100%.
And it reminds me actually, and maybe this is someone that you two perhaps hold in high regard, and I don't want to make any assumptions, so feel free to tell me no, Brad, not at all. But I'm a big fan of Sarah Blakely and just what she did with Spanx. Oh, yeah. And I just find her so accessible. I do find her very, as much as she can be as a billionaire, very like real. And she's just like, this is how I look. This is what I'm doing. She is a billionaire. So, but it's just real. But one thing she shared in a podcast I listened to that she was a guest on, she talked about how her father would force, I'm using air quotes, force her and her brother at the end of every week to discuss openly at the kitchen table at dinner what they failed at that week. And the reason he did that is because he wanted to encourage them to try new things, and understanding that through trying new things, you must fail to find out the things that you are either good at or not good at. So she tried out to be a cheerleader. She was terrible at cheerleading. She tried out to do other things. She was terrible at that. And only through that do we truly find our calling. I find, and as a father to two young children, I'm really trying to encourage them as well through, again, being mindful of my words and how my partner and I coach them. Is like, you're not always going to do it right. The ad campaign isn't always going to be an absolute banger. You're going to fall, and that's okay. It's about, what did you learn, and then picking yourself up and moving forward. And again, everything in life is easier said than done. But I think if we can coach individuals or our children or our future children as well to have this mental understanding or this mindset around, it never will be perfect, like you said, Rebecca. So let's just go with it. Let's just see how it feels, see how it performs, see how it does. And then only then can we actually make a educated decision on what to do next.
Yeah. Something I want to drop in here, and I don't know if this resonates as strongly for men as for women. Maybe it does, but I'm 39 and a half. I'm going to be 40 in January. And a lot of people get to a certain age or a certain stage in their career where they feel like they waited too long, or, it's too late for them. And I was someone who never did anything unless I was going to be first, the best, straight A, graduated in 7 semesters from Columbia with a 4.0, never, only did the things and actually actively quit things that I was not, I did not have that kind of a dad. God bless my dad. But we were very, I went to Columbia, my sister went to Yale, my brother went to Duke, very, performance driven in a very sort of scary way. And so, it took so much personal development and growth work. A lot of mine took place more in the spiritual side versus more of the sort of linear coaching side. But for me to say, hey, it's okay to be new at something. It's okay to start from zero. It's okay to not necessarily be the expert or the number one. And so I worked at the same company where I had a very, very senior role for 12 years, which is like a lifetime to most people. And then in the last 6 years, I've gone boop, 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 boop. Like the growth and the change has been exponential since I gave myself permission to try new things, learn new skills, put myself out there in different places. And so that didn't start until I was in my kind of mid 30s, right? Early to mid 30s. Didn't start until after I had children. I had my first at 30 and my second at 35. So, I say that only because in this world, if you didn't have the dad that taught you that it was okay to fail, you can be the parent to yourself that says, hey, honey, you're going to start and you have 100 followers that are all your high school friends, but you're going to keep growing and you're going to put yourself out there and you're going to believe in your mission and you're going to have your support system. And even if, I was joking with Rebecca the other day, I was home visiting my family. It was my dad's 75th birthday. And one of my dad friends was like, oh yeah, your dad tells me you guys, that you have a blog now. And I was like, oh, yes, I have a blog. Thanks, Dad. It was like one of those things where they don't get, they don't get it. They didn't want me to quit my first full-time job. They didn't want me to quit the next one. They didn't, if you didn't get that early, if you didn't start when you were 21, if you didn't start when you were 30, you missed the 30 under 30 cutoff, it's not over. You can decide to be someone who microdoses risks and put themselves out there at any age. And I know that some people are listening are like, 39's young. It is young. I'm just getting started. I'm just saying, for people that have been fed that false narrative of the 30 under 30 kind of world, it's not too late. You can do all the things.
Absolutely. Rebecca, did you want to add to that at all?
Mm, mm, Do I want to add to that at all? It's funny, we had totally opposite parents growing up, right? Like my dad made me try a lot of sports. And if I didn't like it, I was not allowed to quit. It was, you committed to it for a season. You might not be good at it, but that's okay. You're going to stick to it and you're going to try, and you're going to try to have a little bit of fun in the process, right? And so kind of my career journey, I've been the one that's like bopped around to jobs. I've started businesses and ended businesses in the process. And I've always been a bit more like, let's throw the spaghetti at the wall and see what happens, right? And so I think, there's challenges in both ways, right? Like Amanda's challenges are very different than my challenges, where I'm not as attached to the result or to, growing it as big as it can be. For me, there's so much joy in the process and in creating and in like, oh, I wonder what's going to happen if we try this. And so my personal work has been on like, okay, let's see this through to the end and then some, right? And so I think that it's always important to just take a compassionate yet honest look at yourself and understand, okay, what are my strengths? What are those areas that I wish to work on? And how will working on them benefit my life, benefit my career, benefit my happiness, and then go after it. So there's not one right way or one wrong way. One is not better than the other. And I think that that's really, really important to establish.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate both of you giving context to that. And something that came up, you both said it, but Amanda, you mentioned try new things, and I would love for you to help me understand how much of your work is trying to get your clients to try new things, basically what I'm trying to say, because, and I'm thinking of a current client right now who's just pushing back so much on this whole growth idea. I'm already a great CFO, so why do I need to do anything different? And I say, well, you don't actually, if you don't want to grow, so we can just not work together. But yeah, how do you introduce perhaps to these people that you're engaging with the idea of trying new things? Or is that something that you even suss out in the onboarding process, or because they know your brand, they already expect, you know what, this is probably going to be a bit different? So how does that show up for you in regards to trying new things, or is it already established before they engage?
Yeah, I don't think anyone should engage with a coach if they don't want to try new things. That's that, if you want to just kind of analyze your problems, dive into them, you can have a therapist, and therapy is wonderful, right? People come or should come to a coach when they're ready to do things that they maybe don't have the confidence, the strength, the tools, the strategies to enact themselves. And so they need somebody who can help them with any one of those things, right? They might have all the tools and strategies, but they're scared shitless. Or they might be like, I know I want to go from point A to point B, and I'm ready to do it. But like, there's a lot of gaps in my capability or in my ability to be really linear with my thinking, right? I'm a creative, and like, I need someone who's a who can help me, connect the dots. But the first thing that comes to mind for me when thinking about trying new things is the nervous system. So I am currently studying somatic experiencing, talking about studying new things. I'm in the second year of their third year certification program. And so when I talk to people about trying new things, I'm going to give an illustration, but I'll make it somewhat short. So hiking, right? If you go on a hike, right, there are trails that have clearly had thousands of people walk along them, right? They're wide, they're open, the ground is completely flat, there's no branches, you can just walk them. And then there's these other little side trails, right, where maybe a few people have walked them, but there's rocks and there's branches. And the first time you walk through it, you might get a spider web in your face, or you might get smacked with some, sharp branches or something. So the comfort zone, what we're used to doing, is a big, wide open, comfy path. And the new thing is this trail that's totally covered with brambles and prickers, right? But that big, wide open path might be chugging a bottle of wine every night at 6 p.m., right? just because it's easy, just because it's familiar, doesn't mean it's good for you, right? Like the path that is newer is going to be uncomfortable, even if it is very clearly the right choice or the most beneficial choice. And so when you start a new habit or a new way of orienting to the world, bring your machete, right? Like get ready. You're going to need to, clear the path a little bit. But the more times that you walk it, just like a hiking path, right? All of a sudden, that path becomes the one that's clear, that's open, that's really easy to traverse. And all of a sudden the other one, right? Like I used to be a drinker, right? So my drinking pathway, it's totally overgrown, right? There's no path there anymore. The trees have reclaimed that land. And it would be very uncomfortable for me to even consider going back to being someone who used alcohol as a crutch, because that pathway is gone, right? In yoga and in Eastern philosophy, they call it samskaras, right? There's these grooves that get really well worn in our brains, right? And so what's comfortable is not always what's good, and what's good is not always what's comfortable. But over time, the new thing is no longer new, and then it's easy, right? And it's amazing to watch people go from, oh my God, I hate this, it sucks. Oh my God, I hate this, it's scary, to like, oh, it's getting easier, to like, oh, I do this every day. It is the most exciting thing to watch, but know that that's your nervous system protecting you. It only feels scary because your nervous system is like, whoa, this could be dangerous, this could be a threat. And to know there is a difference between, hey, my nervous system is trying to keep me safe, and this is a bad idea. Very different things.
Rebecca, did you want to shed some light on that as well?
Yeah, so it's interesting. So Amanda and I, our one-on-one businesses are kind of two-pronged. So she primarily, as she mentioned, works with founders and executives, and I work with mid to senior level business professionals, right? Like people who are working for a company. Maybe they have a side hustle, but their primary job is to work for someone else. They're managing up, they're managing down. And the folks that I work with have often found themselves on autopilot, kind of like where I was at Nike, where I've spent a decade plus building this career, and oh shit, it's not what I want to do. So what else is there? And how do I even figure that out and move into it? But I think the common, thread, in addition to what Amanda just so beautifully illustrated about, creating positive change in your life, is also self-reflection, right? So especially if you are in a career where you're managing up, you're managing down, there's people watching you, there's politics at play, people are watching you succeed, they're watching you fail, that a lot of people are self-conscious about trying to make a change, because if you fail, it is on full display for everyone to see, right? Especially when you are, a decade to 20 years into your career, and you're at that point when you're trying to make a name for yourself. You don't want people to see you fail. People are very, very self-conscious and very, very scared about that. So understanding on a very base level, who am I? What do I bring to the world? What do I want? What is my vision? How do I know that I can get there, so that if and when those quote unquote failures or learning moments happen, you're able to distinguish between the failure or learning moment and who you actually are. And I think that that's also a really critical element in going through any type of change, right? Because listen, the jobs are going to come and go. Your toxic boss is going to come and go. Your star employee is going to come and go. But you are always there for yourself. And so you need to figure out who you are, what's important to you, and what you stand for.
Man, so beautiful, both of you. And Amanda, I'm going to steal your, while Rebecca steals my quote that isn't actually my quote, I'm going to steal your hiking analogy as my new marketing campaign.
Leadership.
Follow us down.
Yeah. When I shared that story, because I was like, this is going to hit for him. People who enjoy, I used to be someone who hated change. And now I'm someone who's like, bring it on, bring it on, bring it on. I can handle it. My nervous system has been strengthened and regulated to the point where I don't go into panic mode the way that I used to. And so I love to share that story, because I just think people get it, right? It's like, oh, that's why this feels so awful. right?
Yeah.
Not because I'm walking down the scary path where the big bad wolf is going to get me. It's just like,
Mhm.
I haven't gone this way before.
Yeah. And I think to what you were saying, Rebecca, a bit is what I find myself saying at times to those that will listen is like every once in a while, just put your hand on your heart and just like take a couple of deep breaths and like have some empathy. This is your process. This is your journey.
Mhm. Yeah.
And it's just it honor that. I do it to myself at times because at times I wish I was there, meaning, a certain achievable thing, a KPI, if you will, and I'm not. And
Yeah.
I could easily beat myself up, but that wouldn't fill my cup up if I can.
We
Right.
love
Well,
that.
what
Yes.
would fill my cup up is maybe sitting back in my chair, closing my eyes, doing some box breathing, putting my hand on my heart and feeling the fact that, hey, you're a human being trying to navigate this whole thing of entrepreneurship and you're doing a great job and just keep going, keep trying.
Yeah.
So I appreciate how you both articulate it. Go ahead. Sorry.
And you know what, Brad, is that everyone has those things.
Absolutely.
Everyone has those things that they haven't done yet, or they haven't done in the way that they wanted to do them, unfulfilled dreams. So, if you're out there listening and you feel alone in the fact that you are behind, or maybe things haven't worked out the way that you envisioned them, I want you to know that you are standing alongside literally everyone. And so putting your hand on your heart, it's such a beautiful, simple way to just reconnect with yourself, that part of yourself that is still going to be there, that still has value, that's still worthy, whether or not you've done that thing yet. Right.
Yeah. So beautiful. I want to respect your time. I do. And I say this sincerely. I do feel like we could probably do this for 3 hours. Because I do really appreciate everything you're offering. I kind of feel like I'm learning the whole time, which is great. So I know the listeners are going to love it as well. But I do want to respect your time. Before I do let you go, I have a couple more questions. One of them was, and I've seen it in a bit of your social media, I've seen it and heard it on some of your podcasts. And I would like for you to offer to the listeners and to myself, because I like to give people tangibles like plans of action. So I love the idea of full plate. I think people can conceptualize what that likely is. And perhaps that's a reality for a lot of people right now, whether they're, young parents and mortgage and cars and all these things in their jobs. So they understand full plate. But can you give the listeners and myself perhaps some like low hanging fruit ways they could be filling their cup up, whether it is hand on the heart every once in a while, or some like self-observation exercises, or what are some things that you find yourself suggesting to your community in regards to ways that they can very accessibly fill up their cup?
I think we're going to have two different answers on this one.
Okay.
Take it away, Amanda.
Oh, you're still on mute. You're still on mute. Sorry.
I'll go first, and then I might have to jump because I do have an 11. But play. I've been saying this to everyone lately, especially my parent friends. There are so many opportunities in life where we could watch fun or have fun. And to just choose to like have the fun, and fun doesn't have to look like what fun looks like to other people. So my tangible tip is think of one thing that you actually enjoy that feels like fun and commit to doing it at least once a week, right? And that might be getting out in nature, hopping in a pool, putting in music that you like, going to a dance class, right? One thing that you actually think is fun and committing to do it every week, and then thank yourself for doing it.
Love it. Very accessible and very practical. I love that. Thank you. Rebecca, for yourself?
My tip is to make time for yourself every day and to not be dogmatic about how long that time is, when it happens, or what it looks like, right? 5, 10, 15 minutes mindfully and intentionally spent will add up over time to make a huge difference, whether it is writing a single page in your journal in the morning, stretching your body, mindfully making a cup of coffee, going on a walk around the block. I think those little things are often overlooked, right? And I want people to know that it's like putting nickels and dimes and quarters in a piggy bank. Over time, you grow your bank account so you can buy something really, really beautiful. It doesn't need to be like a whole hour-long morning routine that you see on the internet. Do what works for you, and do so in a way that actually fills your cup, and don't be afraid to experiment and change what that looks like over time.
I love it. I absolutely love it. The last one I have before I let you go is you mentioned from burnt out to lit up. how best people engage with that if they're interested, or how best they engage with you individually or Amanda or collectively as a group.
Yes, thank you for asking. So we just launched our very first online course. It is called From Burnt Out to Lit Up, and it is a 4-week step-by-step course designed to help you beat burnout for good. We provide practical tools and strategies to help you reconnect with yourself, set healthy boundaries, prioritize your schedule, and then put systems in place to hold yourself accountable long after the course ends, because beating burnout is a lifelong thing, and we absolutely acknowledge that. So the first cohort kicks off September 10th. And for this cohort only, we're actually holding weekly live group coaching calls as a freebie. So if that interests you, you can visit our website, fullplatefullcup.com/course, and sign up. Enrollment is now open. And then you can find us on strategically chosen social media platforms. We are not everywhere, and that is by design. So we are on Instagram at Full Plate Full Cup, LinkedIn, Full Plate Full Cup. Our podcast is called Full Plate Full Cup. And then by no surprise, our website is fullplatefullcup.com. So find us there. We love to hear from you guys. It is literally the two of us on the other end. So when you get a response, know that it is either Amanda or myself.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And I appreciate your time on this Friday. This is going to go up by the absolute latest Monday. So we're going to turn this around really quickly.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
Yeah. So I really encourage anyone who is listening, who's interested in the From Burnt Out to Lit Up course, to take advantage of those freebies and interacting with both Amanda and Rebecca. That's a massive value add. So I encourage you to take advantage of that. And obviously, I'll link all of the links to your profiles in the show notes. So again, I encourage everyone out there listening to check them out. I feel like you both are very much the real deal. That's why I was so compelled to have you on. And I can say that through the interaction today, you've confirmed that. So thank you for being authentic. Thank you for doing the work that you continue to do. And I'll continue to do whatever I can do to support you and fly your flag as you grow your business and your community. So thanks again for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having us. It was so much fun.
That's it, guys. You know what to do. Until next time, seek growth, be good, and do good. That's it.